And good morning and welcome to Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. Bill Dixon, Szynal, along with the head football coach for the Wapsie Warriors, Coach Jon Reutebuch. Coach, huge victory last night. Took on the Plymouth Rockies right here at Warrior Field for homecoming. Come away with a huge W and an extremely exciting football game.
Yeah, the sun's shining a little brighter this morning, that's for sure.
I'd say so.
Great win, all-around win. A lot of people involved. A lot of people making big plays at key times. Definitely gave the crowd their money's worth in excitement. A couple times we had a chance to put the game away, and we didn't quite do it, but we made the plays when it counted. And just so happy for the kids, the coaches, everybody that puts in the hard work. We knew Plymouth was going to be a tough game. You know, people look at the record 0-5 and think, oh, they're not any good. But when you start looking at who they played, each team they played had only one loss, and several of them are ranked. I mean, they played the top three teams in the conference in Northridge, Mishawaka, and Warsaw. And then Kokomo only had one loss on the season, and East Noble has one loss on the season. So they played some quality opponents. And, you know, they've been going through a lot of stuff just like us, sickness, quarantine, injuries, those kind of things. And so we knew what we're going to be in for. And the great thing about it is, when something went bad, we didn't just hang our heads. We came back swinging. There were several defensive stands that had to take place. You know, we got a pick in the red zone, and you know, offensively, we were able to churn out some yardage, use up some clock. You know, keep the ball out of their possession and score points, and that was huge. So huge win all around for our program, and it's a lot nicer going into the week with a win than 0-6 going into the W game.
Absolutely.
You know, Coach, I was just looking at the stats that I can hardly read because my writing is that cursive that isn't any good anymore.
You know, they have the compuper now. That you can
I know.
Type that up,
do you had you
but
use that
easier
thing?
to read.
But hey,
have your secretary get on that one.
I was really impressed with the running of a couple of your kids there. They were just Lucas, Ringler and Zimmerman.
Yes.
I mean, gee, many Christmas.
They both had 80 yards each, and, you know, you throw in Larson's
two TDs
and a couple big runs there, one really at a crucial time, and then also Brandon Kelly. You know, that's some big runners there, and once we get all that going,
oh, man.
You know, we got something happening, and we got things churning, and probably would have liked a little bit more out of the passing game, but heck, when you're running the ball that well, you're eating up clock, you're possessing the ball, and you're getting first down. So we liked the way that worked last night.
And, you know, I was looking, Ringler had a 23-yard run, a 42-yard run. Zimmerman had a 55-yard run. The one TD by Larson was a 30-yard run. He had another 19-yard run. I mean, these guys, they've been hit, 4 or 5 times, and they still keep going.
Those are big plays.
Yes.
You know, teams try to stay away from those big plays, those 20-plus yard plays, and we had several of them last night, and that makes a huge difference.
Oh, huge difference.
We probably would have had more touchdowns if it weren't for number 13, Devonte Garcia. He's a heck of a ball player.
He is.
Kicker, returner, defensive player. He's the one that, you know, caught our guys going down the sideline. And then obviously his offensive play, you know, catching that wheel route for a touchdown. He's a great player.
He is a great player. And, you know, the other thing Bill and I were talking about was your defense. Oh, man. Geez, I don't think there was one play where you had just one guy tackling. I mean, someone would grab him, and then immediately two or three guys would come in and finish it. You know?
Yeah, and that's something that's been lacking lately. That's something by design. We've worked on pursuit drill, and we worked on guys, you know, swarming to the football. Coach Zaebst has been working them on that a lot. And so it was good to see guys do that because that's what we need. We need a lot of guys getting to the point of attack and not just assuming your teammate's going to make the play and watch it.
Yes.
So, yes, the defense stepped up big time in many places last night.
And then I like when you had that full court press. Is that the right sport, Bill?
I don't think so.
But when
Hit
you
it right out of the park.
Right out,
exactly.
You know, you had those rushes where you brought 15 of the 11 guys in, and you called that. I mean, that had to be a signal from the bench, and that worked.
Yeah, Coach Zaebst, you know, and Coach Casey upstairs in the box, and you know, constantly talking back and forth about, you know, what do we need to do here? What, you know, what's the situation here? I told the coaches last night, Hayden Mons probably had the best timed blitzes all night
Yes.
long of any linebacker, and Plymouth's coaches recognized that. There was 2 or 3 coaches, including John Barron, that made a beeline and said, "You played a heck of a game last night." So that had to feel good for the young man.
Oh, yeah.
Hayden Mons didn't start this year as a starter, but he is now and has really come on. Last night we saw a number of those individuals go from what I would call a supporting role, where someone else was making the lead tackle or somebody else was out in front, and then they were there, to being the guy out front and making it happen.
Yeah.
And on the defensive side of the ball especially, we had a lot of names that we called that we had never called before.
Well, Jared Smith,
yes.
We were talking not too long ago about, I don't know if we've had him playing in a game since the West Noble game, at least not in a full role, and he stepped up big time last night. He's the one that picked it off in the red zone, had several knockdowns. I don't know, I think he had 6-7 tackles on the evening. Just played very, very solid in the back end, and that's something that's been lacking lately too. And then Nate Larson, always solid from our Fox position,
right?
Making a lot of plays in open field, especially. Our defensive line, we were rotating guys in and out, trying to keep guys fresh. And, they did a great job, too. There was times where we bent, but we didn't break.
Hey, if Robertson and Clark hadn't held up their end of the game right there off the end and the nose position, if they hadn't been there, then people like Mons and Larson couldn't have made that big blitz to get in there. And the blitz really made the difference in the second half of the game, I thought. Anyway.
Yeah, defensive line definitely helps linebackers make plays. And so our defensive line play has been pretty good. And like I said, we have several guys that we can rotate through there, even though we were missing 2 guys still again last night. So that's only going to add. Once we get those guys back, I mean, that gives us a lot of potential up front. So, that went pretty well, and like I said, timed up those blitzes very nicely and put some pressure on that quarterback. And sometimes he missed guys that were open or made an errant throw, and we were able to pick it off or knock it down. And they had trouble with snaps at times and handoffs. So, balls on the ground quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think one situation the ball actually hit him in the face mask on a snap. So. The flip side of that is we got to take advantage of every one of those things. We got to drive the football. On one certain case, they turn it over to us, and we turn it right back over to them.
That's true.
It wasn't exactly a clean game, on our end by any means, but like I said, we made enough plays to win the ball game.
One of the other things that impressed me was your lack of penalties that we have seen in previous games. I mean, that was huge.
Especially starting off drives. You're right on that. A lot of times we start off drives with a penalty or a loss of yardage, and we didn't do that last night, at least not very many times. And that makes it huge because you're not fighting behind the sticks all the time. And so that was big. We had a couple key pass interference calls.
Yes.
That's true.
There was one that I definitely think the DB made a great call or great play, but that happens. It happens in a game, and I know that for overall it was a pretty well officiated game. It was just a lot happening out there.
Now, when that ball goes up in the air and you're a defensive back, I mean, you have to be really careful. That's part of the thing now, especially because these referees are calling,
and anymore teams are good at throwing it short, and trying to fight their way back, and DB runs into them and things. It's not just covering a guy. You got to judge the football, and you got to do it in a manner that doesn't interfere. It's definitely an advantage to the offensive player if he knows how to go up and get it and high point it. But I think for the most part, our kids played pretty well.
Job.
You get wrapped up. They threw a little wild card at us. They've been running flexbone for the last 3 games, and they ran spread the first 2 games, and we kept speculating back and forth. And Coach Zaebst had a card on one side was for the flexbone, the other side was for the spread. And so they ran a kind of a combination of the two. They ran a wide flexbone, which they've done before. And so that took some adjustment. And, we finally settled in, understanding what they were doing and what they were trying to do, but it definitely took some adjustment.
We were surprised at the amount of motion from, was it Deerfield? 3? We expected more from Garcia, and we were surprised at the role Deerfield played for them.
Yeah. It all goes to 13, though.
Yeah.
Motion this way, motion that way. But bottom line is they're trying to get 13 the ball. And you know what? Number 20 ran the ball pretty well,
he
too,
did.
the fullback.
Excellent.
And there was a couple times we were looking for answers. We were changing fronts and things like that to try to look for answers to stop him because he was churning it through, too. So,
and the instant that you focus at all, on him, right back to 13 they go, back to Garcia.
And the big quarterback run in the second half there, we demolished the running back. I mean, we destroyed him, but he didn't have the ball.
Yeah,
the quarterback had it and took off. And so, you take one part away, and here comes another part. So they got a lot of good things working for them. You just got to make plays, and our kids made enough plays that it made the difference.
We talked about Mons on the defensive side of the ball. I was really impressed with his leading block coming from the wing spot. I thought he did a really nice job in that role. That's not something that just happens because you've got to make that first hit, you got to release, and then you got to look for the linebacker to follow. That's a lot of working pieces.
Yeah, I think overall, even our whole offensive line did a great job last night. And again, we had pieces back. Last two games, we had replacement guards. We had both guards there. So that makes a big difference because those guys have been working together all summer, and it's like a choreographed dance for those offensive linemen. And they didn't have the whole pieces together until last night for a long time also, and so that made a big difference. Hayden Mons' blocks, running backs blocks. Receivers blocks. I mean, there's one play that I noted last night. There was 3 what I call devastating blocks on the same play, and of course it was a huge play for us. And it was Brandon Kelly, it was Landon Alexander, and Dryden Hernandez. All 3 of them made key blocks and just went after the guy and demolished him. And of course Ringler's running down the sideline, and that's why that happens. Everybody sees Ringler, but they don't see what happened before then. And that's something as coaches we'd be sure to note and show them that this is what your hard work gets. This is what your effort gets. We get big plays.
To expand on that just for a second, Bill and I were talking a lot last night about the blocks. When Ringler would run it or Zimmerman would run it, I mean, your guys did a great job of legally blocking to open up your offense, to open up those 2 runners, Zimmerman and Ringler, and like you said,
the
Larson.
seams between the tackles. We were really impressed with the seams between the tackles.
Yeah, we felt like we could run the ball going in, and be honest with you, we felt like we could run the ball all this year a lot better than we have. And, a lot of different factors and variables to that, but that is an emphasis that we want to be able to run the football. And to win football games, you got to be able to run the football, and you got to stop the run. And those are 2 things that we've been working hard on and trying to get going, and it just makes you a better team, and everything works off of that.
Coach, how'd they do after the game last night?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, tell me a little bit about that.
Big celebration. Of course, they couldn't wait to get hands shook and then run over there to the cheer block and sing the fight song.
Yes.
I actually talked about that earlier in the week, and, they were excited to do that. We haven't done that in a while, and, that's a first conference team we've beaten outside of Goshen in, 4 or 5 years. And so it's huge. It's
huge.
And so the celebration, we took it to the end zone, and I asked them, how that felt. And, of course, they loved it. And then I said, you ready to do it again next week in the W game? And they didn't hesitate. They roared. So it makes a huge impact on the mindset. And so, you start believing a little bit. And a team that has hope and belief, they're a dangerous team, and that's what we plan on doing next Friday.
Coach, who did you bring for our other pieces of the program here today?
I brought our social media guru, Jamie Salazar. He's the mouth of the North here, and also brought our defensive coordinator, Andy Zaebst.
Excellent. We'll talk to both of them coming up here on Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. And welcome back to Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. Sitting down with head football coach of the Wabasee Warriors, Coach Jon Reutebuch. Coach, introduce our first guest today.
Our first guest today is Jamie Salazar. Jamie is a former player here at Wabasee. I actually coach him. That's how old I am. And Jamie is still in the community, and we're going to delve into what he does and then also talk about what he does for the football team.
Excellent.
So, Jamie, go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about your high school, your college, and then bring us up to date with where you're at, and don't forget the wife.
Yeah, it's definitely different being on this end of the mic, whether, usually I'm asking the questions and things when I'm interviewing coaches or players. But, Jamie Salazar, graduate of Wawasee High School, proud graduate, class of 99. So, I was the last...
1899?
1999.
Oh, okay.
I figured you would have that Prince song playing right
thought
now.
I'd check.
Yeah. So, so 1999 graduate, and then I graduated in 2004 at Manchester, now university, then college, and was a wrestler up there. And
now, you played football, wrestled, and threw shot in track, and you're a pretty good shot thrower, as I recall. Also had him in track as well.
Yeah, Coach Reutebuch kind of talked me into doing track for the first time, and almost made it to state.
You sure did.
So
he was a 50-plus shot putter.
Whoa. Yeah, it was
a big guy, strength, explosion, and Coach Murphy and I talked, and we definitely thought, holy cow, this guy could probably put that shot out there, and sure enough.
Yeah.
He had a good one.
Yeah, I remember losing to a couple guys that ended up, one of the guys from Northrop, I think, made it into the pros for football, and he was a stud, man.
Yeah.
I was like, holy cow, I didn't know that much. That little cannonball can be thrown that far. So, it was definitely good experiences in high school, and I think that's the reason why it brought me back to the community. I was living in Florida, and just trying to be a part of that movement to bring greatness back to the athletic departments here at Wawasee, and when it where we were to where we were heading, it just what didn't feel right. So sometimes it takes some old souls to make things happen, and to kind of be a representation of the so-called Warrior Nation that it used to be. And I think we're making that transition and trying to set that level of expectation for the athletes, the administration, as well as the community, to let them know that, hey, we're a solid core here. That's why you leave, but you always come back. And that's it's just something special about this community that really can be that fifth man, so to speak, sixth man, so to speak, in a game or just with community support. So there's a lot of historic families around here. Like I said, when I first arrived, I'm sitting in the presence of greatness. I grew up listening to you guys, and I can officially say on the air that you guys are probably the reason why I was pushed towards radio. It's just because just the excitement and man, Friday nights under the lights. I remember playing for Wawasee Waves, the first official Wawasee Waves team back in the day, and I remember we used to get your guys' bumper stickers.
I lost a lot of bumper stickers.
Yeah,
to the Wawasee
I just was about to say that.
Yes, I did.
Those bumper stickers, man. We cut them, and that was the highlight of the game. Just after the game,
they would take the waves off the bottom of the bumper sticker, and they would use them like the Ohio State team uses a Buckeye on the helmet.
Yeah.
The what team?
Yeah,
don't say that.
Yeah. So it was definitely a highlight, and that's kind of where we were all introduced. I mean, we just grew up listening to you guys, and it was just it's an awesome feeling when you're driving down the road and you hear you guys it just brings back so many memories. So
absolutely.
Kudos to you guys on that.
It's great to have those guys back in the saddle again, and it feels like Wawasee football, hearing those guys calling games and having them up in the booth and talking to them on Saturdays. It feels right.
Oh, yeah, it feels definitely home.
Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Yep. So
talk about today. What are you doing today?
So today, what I just to kind of bridge off of what I was just saying about the presence of Wawasee, football, athletics, with the support of bringing, the old souls back. My role here is to highlight special features for the teams, to give an opportunity for these students that, maybe sometimes don't ever get exposure, to kind of make them prime time, so to speak. Talk about, them as an individual, their families, what their future goals are. And sometimes, when they do those interviews, they may not be thinking about what's the next step. And that kind of gets the ball rolling to like, hey, you know what? You can be a student athlete in high school. You can do it in college. And I think that, as a coach myself, I think that's the number one role for us is to make impacted individuals that can, translate that into the world and society to make it,
And that's more difficult today than it was 5 years ago, than
Absolutely.
it was 10 years ago, than it was 20 years ago, mostly because of the influence of the internet and the immediacy that students now experience. And it's difficult to be able, with everything being so immediate, with immediate gratification on so many different levels, it's difficult to get a young mind to think any distance into the future. And it seems like that distance they are capable of on their own keeps shrinking.
Right.
So bringing this around to just exposing them to this thought has got to be something novel for these young people.
Right, absolutely. And I think as you, just to piggyback off your what you're saying, I mean, anybody can be a superstar nowadays with the multimedia platforms that are set before them, but not everybody can be an influence.
Positive influence.
Positive influence, yeah.
And what I've also found is that young people, are starting to recede. They're starting to back away from even attempting things because all they see on the internet is perfection. So anything less than that they would have to offer, they consider inconsequential, insignificant. They don't want to try stuff because they're not perfect at it the first time they do it.
Yeah, and you know what? And just to see their reactions with those interviews, and even sometimes the families, they're like, you see family members from, that I know personally on these kids that are like Texas or whatever, and it's their opportunity for them to kind of get recognition for their family, even though they may not have a strong starting role on a team or a position or whatnot. It's this little sense of accomplishment for them.
Yeah. So how much of your role then is the actual doing of because you and I, we can do this media stuff all day long. How much of your role is the doing of it, and how much of your role is the guidance for these young people in how to manage it and how to use it themselves?
Yeah. I think the majority of my role is to kind of, in essence, I guess you would say guide them, because I'm giving them a set of ideas or questions to where they can actually highlight their own goals, their likes, their interests that maybe somebody walking right next to them in the hallway would never know anything about them.
Sure.
So it's a way to kind of get them some exposure, but at the same
it's a different set of questions, isn't it? Yeah, it is.
So, it gives them an opportunity to let them know, like, hey, there's, Coach Reutebuch wants you to be, so you got a caring coach that wants to highlight you for your hard work, your presence, you're a senior. You know what? We're going to send you off with a bang. Even if you may not be the top player of the team, you're going to be the top player of the team this week.
You're important too.
And you're important too. And I think that's a very key component.
And a message that's totally missing elsewhere on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Completely missing.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's an important role for them to, go through life. And I think it's a lasting memory that they'll never forget.
Sure.
So.
And just kind of showcase what exactly Jamie does for us. We have social media presence. You have to these days, and Jamie's the guy that puts out pictures, puts out action photos like last night's victory and things like that. He's at many different functions, showing the public this is what the football team's doing. This is your kids in action. This is your kid with his buddies, and he also puts out announcements, and he does these senior interviews that you guys are talking about. And sometimes for some of these kids, it's the first time they've ever been put in that situation. It's a great experience. And so, and he also interviews our coaches so people can get to know our coaches as well. And it's just an outstanding position that he's in, and he does a great job with it. And I actually saw him doing that for the wrestling team. He coaches and does that for the wrestling team. I'm like, hey, I got to get this guy. I know this guy, and I got to get him doing that for our football team. And he's done an outstanding job, and happy to have him. And he has words of advice to kids here and there too along the way. Because he's been there, done that. He's a Wawasee athlete. He played a little football and wrestled at a high level at Manchester, and he's a Wawasee guy. He loves Wawasee. He wants to see Wawasee win, and his heart is with Wawasee athletics, and those are the kind of people we want around our football program.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Jamie, back when Wawasee 103 existed, we kind of did the internet thing. We were the first one to do multiple football games on the internet and kind of initiated that whole thought pattern. Back in that day, we had to exert a lot of time just in managing a platform. I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, your role is more to exploit the platforms that already exist. You're not really managing a platform. You're using platforms that somebody else has, right?
That is true. So we're using platforms such as your Twitter, your Facebook,
Max Preps.
Yeah,
that's got to be huge, right?
Yeah, that's something that's more on coaches' end.
Yeah.
I really don't go towards the outside of the, so to speak, industry platforms as far as.
But you've got to be providing material. You got to be providing content for coach to use over at Max Preps. Am I right?
That actually comes with
that's more stats.
More
thing.
stats.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So that's just a numbers type deal for you over at Max
For
Preps.
us, Max Preps is where we send stats, so most of the media can keep up with what our stats are, and we don't, back in the day, they would ask you, and you'd have to keep up to date and supply them with all that information. Now there's a platform that they can all go to and see what your stats are,
Right.
so that limits what a coach has to do as far as providing the media.
So
go ahead.
My role mostly is to make the package beautiful. So I create the sense of urgency for other businesses to possibly become sponsors for the team.
Right.
Painting the picture. When we have a hard loss, I try to come up. I just speak from the heart from being an athlete. I write motivational words for uplifting them, to letting them know.
So we're talking the Twitters, the Facebooks of the world.
Yep.
What about this TikTok thing? Do you use that?
No, we don't really go on that. It's,
Okay.
That's more, especially nowadays, they have a lot of these challenges that are causing a lot of riffraff, and I really am. I believe that where our football team and our vision and Wawasee athletics in this community is above that.
So the image of the platform itself matters to you before you choose which one to use.
Absolutely.
I got you.
Absolutely. Because I mean, anything that I put on there, how it is, the world will see it, and it's
absolutely.
everywhere. So I have to be very selective on.
Well, and that's a real, you got to make a choice there. The kids, they love the TikTok.
Yeah.
So if you're going to use this as a recruiting source, you could try to fight the stream over at TikTok and try to reach those kids. But the current with TikTok is so negative that you can't successfully, it's like an undertow.
Yeah.
You can't successfully fight that stream.
Yeah, we I think we have a little bit more self-respect for our focus on where we're trying to go. Not downgrading any platforms, things of that nature.
I don't think the management of TikTok is going to care too much about what we all say.
But
here.
I'm saying, though, I think that our focus on where we just want to be positive, we want to be uplifting, we want to be focused on the community and have a community support. And I think the way that we're heading, the way that we've done for the past, I'd say 5-6 years since I've started doing this with wrestling, as Coach said, and then transitioning to football as well and covering both platforms, I think it's a good representation of what Coach will send me some, hey, I need you to, we got this event coming up. And then I kind of put my words to it and then kind of just to spice it up a little bit to create that sense of urgency. Like, hey, I got to be at this event.
Got it.
Yep.
So,
and the signature on that, Coach Boo, that's not me signing that. That's Coach Salazar
that's me.
over here.
Everybody always butchers his name, Reutebuch. So, it's like, hey, I've always thought of him as a Babaloo Bear off of the Jungle Book. So, I just stuck with him, I was just, hey, it's Coach Boo, so that's kind of where that old tagline came.
Jamie Salazar, who's, I would almost say, the SID for Wawasee football. We appreciate his being here today. When we come back, we'll talk to Coach Zaebst. This is Coach's Corner with Coach Jon Reutebuch on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. And welcome back to Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. Coach Reutebuch, Coach Salazar with us here for just another minute. Give us those websites, those places where we can go on the internet to see the official word of Wabasee High School football.
Right. So if you're on your Facebook platform, you can go to Wabasee Warrior Football for all the updates. Parents, if you need updates on activities for your kids, drop-off times, things of that nature, or community involvement, you can see all the businesses that are involved with Wabasee Warrior Football. And if you are interested in actually being a sponsor, you can send Coach Boo a message there on Facebook. And then Twitter, that's Wabasee Warrior Football as well.
Very good. Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Jamie.
Thank you for your time.
Warrior Grit.
Tremendous
Warrior Grit. That's right.
Tremendous impact the social media is making right now.
Huge.
on Wabasee Warrior football.
Yes, and it's very important. You got to have that media presence.
Joining us now, we've got the defensive specialist for the Wabasee Warriors, Coach Andy Zaebst. And tell us a little bit about Coach Zaebst.
Andy Zaebst is our defensive coordinator, as you mentioned, and Andy's been with me for 3 years, and he was with the program, I believe, a year before that. Andy was at Garrett previously, coached under I'll let him tell all about that. But Andy, tell us about your journey here, where you came from, your journey from Garrett to Wabasee, and then we'll get into the good stuff you do here.
Yeah, originally from Ohio. Went to Hudson High School. Went to Ohio Northern University. Played baseball there. After college, went to Garrett High School. Coached baseball and football over there. I was thinking about actually my 9th year coaching football, which seems a little crazy. Then came over to Wabasee 4 years ago, and then been defensive coordinator here for the last 2 years.
Andy also coaches baseball, and he teaches at Wabasee Middle School and English and social studies.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And his wife. Got to mention the wife.
Yep. My wife, Heidi, she's at Milford teaching kindergarten. She's been doing that for, I think 14 years. Wow. I think 12 at Milford. She was in Florida for 2 years, right out of college. But, yeah, she came back home. She's a Wabasee grad, and she's the reason that I'm here. So, she does great work there at Milford. I can't imagine doing kindergarten.
Herding cats.
Coach Zaebst, I remember when we first started calling football, when Coach Szynal and I were just drawing our first Social Security checks, and we started doing football on the air, and I said to Coach Szynal on the air in the very first game, what does it take to play defense in high school football? And Coach Szynal said, well, it helps to be a good athlete, but you don't really have to be. And you just tell them to run toward the ball. I don't think that's the way we coach defense anymore in the state of Indiana.
Well, sometimes it is just simple as that. I mean, some guys, you need to use really few words, and the ultimate object is to tackle the football. So sometimes that's not a bad strategy, but, yeah, there's a whole lot more to it. It's the game, wouldn't you agree, Andy, has become so specialized in positions and what we require of kids. I mean, our defense is a great example. Our Fox and our used to be our bandit position. What we ask those kids to do and what they need to be able to do as athletes. Go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Coach has talked to me a lot about trying to keep our defense simple. We talked a lot last year, and I think, I'm sure it was talked about on the radio last year, and obviously trying to focus on this year. But Northridge made the comment last year that our defense played fast, and that's a testament to us trying to keep it simple for the players so that they don't have to think a whole lot. The old line from Bull Durham, don't think it can only hurt the ball club. We don't want our guys to think too much. Just go out there and play football, and the less thinking you have to do, the faster you play. But yeah, we do have to specialize some things, and thankfully we do have some really good athletes, good players that we can ask a little bit more out of. Nate Larson is in a position, we try to put him in a position to make plays, and he does that a lot for us on the defensive side of the ball. And we talked about it earlier. You guys talked about it earlier. It was nice to have Jared Smith back last night. He definitely made some huge plays for us, and key times. That interception in the end zone, that was huge. And really, that the one that Landon Alexander got, I told Jared, I said, you made that play. You know, he got back there and broke up the play, and it just bounced towards Landon. So he made some great plays for us last night, and it was nice to have him back for sure.
We talked previously about, in fact, last week we had Lucas Ringler here. And Lucas talked about, from a defensive standpoint, particularly at his position back there in the secondary when he's playing safety or corner, that football IQ, he thought, was the strongest thing he brought to the game. How important is that for your kids that are coming in? How much, because we've got this tremendous feeder program now with the kids that go all the way down way into the elementary schools. How much is that helping you from a defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, football IQ is huge. You know, when we can get a little bit more complex and we don't have to teach the basics when kids are coming in, that's huge for us.
Are you experiencing that? Is that happening?
Yeah, you know, we have some kids that have some good football IQ. You know, Lucas is a great example. Nate Larson is a great example. You know, so when those guys come in with that football IQ, we can ask a little bit more of them. We can ask them to do things that maybe are a little bit more complex. Obviously, we are trying not to throw too much on their plate. You know, we don't want to be these pro or college defenses that are, you know, all sorts of adjustments on the fly, and, you know, you just watch these guys changing things up at the last second. We can't afford to do that. That's not because we don't have smart kids. It's just because we are trying to keep our defense simple.
And that's next level stuff.
Yeah, that's next level.
And those guys are out there on the field playing, and as an athlete, when you're in the action, sometimes you got to go on your instincts too, and those guys have enough experience. They have a good football IQ, and we talked about with Lucas, you know, just going under center and sneaking it and getting it, you know, into the end zone. Right. Those are the kind of things that players, you know, they get to a certain point in their IQ and in their experience that they're confident that, hey, I'm at the scene, I know what's going on. I need to make this play, and this is how I'm going to do it. And that's built upon, you know, hours and hours of training and scouting and knowing those situations and having those experiences that they can do that. And so I think that's what Andy is speaking to is, you know, football IQ is great. Usually it comes in your form of seniors, but, you know, we have some young kids, especially a sophomore I can think of, that not only knows what he's supposed to do, but he knows what everybody else is supposed to do. He's telling seniors where they're supposed to go and what they're supposed to do, and that's Hayden Mons. And you want to talk about his game last night.
Yeah, Hayden Mons played a great game last night.
It was incredible.
Yeah. We've asked a lot of him. As a sophomore, you know, you guys mentioned he was not supposed to be a varsity starter. We wanted him to develop at the JV level this year, but because of some things that have happened with the program, he had to step in and play that inside linebacker role, and he has taken it and excelled at it this year. And I think last night really showed all of his hard work, and it all came together last night. You know, I've talked to him a couple times. I've talked to him about, you've got to be the leader out there. I know you're a sophomore, but you know, you're the captain of that defense out there.
Well, you just happen to be talking about a kid that I know a little more deeply than some of the other kids. And that young man brings something to the field that we've talked about for years and years and years and years and years. That's leadership through maturity. That when you've got that, you need to take advantage of that as a coach, because he needs to spread that to everybody else.
Absolutely. And you know, just the intangibles. He's at everything. He doesn't miss anything. You know, he just got a T-shirt for summer accountability. He didn't miss a day. Didn't miss anything.
That doesn't surprise me one bit with Hayden Mons.
And when we do film and scout, he is you know, pointing that stuff out, you know, and he's in tune. You can see it in his eyes, you know, and he's asking football questions. And
he's a team guy, and if you tell him something as a coach, it's not something that's an opinion, it's fact. And he simply takes it and goes with it. He's in some ways he's very old school that way. But when you've got that kind of leadership as coaches, I got to believe you got to spread that to every. You got to turn him to be as infectious as possible to get everybody else on that same level.
Yeah, and that's how you turn programs around.
That's right.
You send around those kind of kids and you build around that. I mean, you know, And we try to reward that too. I mean, we just had a team meal a couple meals ago, and the guys that were at everything all summer, they got to eat steak, and everybody else had pizza. So we try to emphasize that, but it's great to have a kid like Hayden Mons, and there's a couple other kids that are stepping up now and in those leadership roles, and that's something that we really need desperately, especially when things are not going the way they should be. And I told a kid last weekend, adversity reveals your character. It doesn't make your character, and so how you handle adversity and how you go through that, and us as a team, we're doing the same thing. How do we handle when things don't go our way? Do we hang our head and let it snowball, or do we pick ourselves back up and next play? I mean, I yelled that probably 1,000 times last night. Next play. Don't worry about that one. Next one, because the next play is the one you can do something about. So,
yeah, and I think to build off that a little bit, we finally got that last night. The next play is okay. We're on. They hit us a couple times, punched us in the mouth a couple times, and we bounced back. And it was definitely a bend and don't break night. I told the boys at halftime, I said, let's stop bending. Let's just, get some 3 and outs. We continued to bend a little bit in the second half, but ultimately we got the stops we needed to get, and we got the win at the end of the night.
And opportunistic. I mean, we got some turnovers last night, and we've talked many times about how many times we had the opportunity to pick the ball off or get on a fumble, and we just quite hadn't done it. And last night we did. Yep. We got some fumbles, we got some picks, and we made some big plays in the backfield, and they were very timely.
Coach, I was just wondering, last night the defense seemed so the tackling seemed so hard. I mean, I know we've been in 5 other games.
And game tackling, too.
But I mean, they seem like they hit the players harder. And I don't think I've seen that in a long time, where you're playing, you go up to tackle. But last night, I mean, Jiminy Christmas.
And particularly that much development in the middle of the season from one game to the next.
Yeah, that's been a huge point of emphasis the last 2 weeks. We do a lot of basic tackling in the summer and leading up into the preseason, and then we do a little bit of tackle circuit. As the season progresses, you think, okay, we're good there, and we kind of got away from it. And then we said, hey, the last couple games, we said we need to get back to our tackling and focus on that. So we've made a huge emphasis of that the last few weeks in practice, the tackle circuit. We've got a couple different drills that we do, and
pursuit
and pursuit as well, and getting to the football and finishing tackles. That was the big thing. We were in position to tackle. We weren't finishing the tackle. They were finishing it for us, falling forward for 4 or 5 yards, and that was the point of emphasis, especially with my linebackers. You got to hit him and drive him back and finish the tackle backwards. So
it's the drive back that you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Keep the legs moving, your momentum moving. You don't stop your feet when you're making a tackle and throwing your arms through and running through them. And that swarm mentality, too.
That we really saw last night, and the change from 1 week to the next in the middle of the season is very unusual, but where it's definitely an increase there from last week to this week. Very impressive.
Yeah, and I will say the big hit that everybody seemed to be talking about. I think one of the officials said that he heard that hit, and then the coach was talking about it that the quarterback actually kept it. But that was a huge hit. That was David Anderson. And, I watched that again on film last night, and he smacked that guy. And David's an awesome kid.
And not the biggest kid on that football field either.
But he gets after it, and for a guy that has only been playing football for 3 years, he has really taken a hold of his role, and he wants to be out on that field, and he wants to develop and get better. And this year, we're definitely seeing all of his hard work paying off.
That's another Hayden Mons type kid. Those two together, that's that maturity of leadership that you really just you can't spend. You can't buy that.
And your linebackers are your heart of your defense.
That's right.
So when you got those two guys, you got Larson at the Fox position, and that bodes well for us.
Absolutely.
Is that your Rudy?
I would like to give those guys a little more credit. I love Rudy and the story of Rudy, but these guys they have talent, and neither one of them have played a ton of football in their lifetime, but they got the passion and the heart and the want to get better and want to be coached up, and that's what it takes. The kid wants to be coached. He works hard. We coach him up, and then go out there and have fun, and defense is a blast. I've always loved defense as a player because, you just get to get after people, and offense, it's fun too to make great plays, but defense, I always say offense is a choreographed dance. It's everybody's got to be in sync or it's not going to work. On defense, you can have a guy make a play and make you right. Mm-hmm. And we saw a lot of kids last night make a play and make us right. And it's fun when we have those big hits, and it's fun when we pick the ball off or get a fumble or a quarterback sack and all those things. It gets people fired up, and it gets that passion, that emotion, because football is a passionate and emotional game. And Andy brings a lot of that in his coaching too. He's hip bumping guys after they make a play, and he's yelling and pumping his fists, and he's hard to miss on the field. He's a big tall stork out there, so it's great. And that's your defensive coordinator's got to be that kind of guy, because that's how you play defense. And offense on the flip side, you're the puppeteer, you're the controller, and you got to be kind of even keel a little bit, and you celebrate when you make big plays. But the defense is definitely a passionate thing, and getting those guys passionate about flying to the football, making tackles, making big hits, and then celebrating with each other and enjoying those moments. And last night was a great example. I mean, we had kids flying all over the place, kids making plays, one of the fun things, we did this last year. You remember this, Andy, when we showed a game and we made a big play and you highlighted every coach. This was cool that Andy did. Highlighted every coach was jumping up and down and pointing their hands and everything, and our kids were just standing there. And we said, we need to have celebration. You need to enjoy what's going on. You look at our film last night, you had kids jumping up and down. The cheer block was going crazy. The crowd was awesome. There was electricity in Warrior Field last night. And, we wanted to have a easier win, but you know what? It was fun.
Well, and we had to take a timeout because it was so loud. I was losing my voice, and we had 12 guys out on the field, and I was trying to get Brandon Kelly back off, and it was so loud because it was a great environment. The cheer block was into it that he couldn't hear us, so we had to call that timeout.
Coach Zaebst, thanks very much for being with us. Andy Zaebst,
You're welcome.
The defensive coordinator for Walvis C. When we come back, the W game is up next here on Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. And welcome back to Coach's Corner on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. Talking to the head football coach of the Wabasee Warriors, Coach Jon Reutebuch. Coach, this week we get on the bus. We drive south. We take on the evil nemesis of the NLC, the Warsaw Tigers.
Should we be like Ohio State and Michigan and just say that school to the south?
That
and
school
not even say their name?
south.
Everybody will know who we're talking about. Everybody.
That prison there, just south of
correct.
Warsaw.
My.
The monster school. Yes, it's the W Trophy game, and
yes.
It doesn't matter when this game has been played over the years, what teams' records are. Kids are passionate. Everybody knows what it's all about. And it's an important game, no matter what's going on. And our kids, after last night, are fired up to play this football game. Going into this game at 0-6 would have been probably a struggle to get their minds right. And that shows you what a big difference a win can make, and kids learning how to win and making those plays and having confidence that they can make those plays is a huge factor. And so kids are ready to get after it this week. And you know what? All the pressure's on Warsaw.
It is.
They're the ones that are supposed to win this game, and it'll be on the, everybody will have their predictions and everything. And, we can just go out there and play with confidence. And who knows, that's why you play them every Friday night. You never know what can happen.
That's why you play the game.
I'm sure we'll come up with some analogies this week for kids of examples where teams have come in and upset a team that maybe Warsaw overlooks us and is looking beyond us at Northwood and Concord on their schedule.
That's easy to do when you're a 5, almost, if we had 6As, they would be up there toward that.
We do. They are a 6A school, the biggest classification, and we're a small 4A. And so, you can put 2.5 Wawasees into Warsaw. That's how big they are compared to us. So.
Well, that's real easy for the big school then to overlook.
But you know what? You only put 11 on the field. That's
right.
At a time.
That's right.
So you can have all the people you want on the sideline, but the 11 guys out on the field's got to make plays, and whoever makes more plays wins the ball game. And so it doesn't matter how many guys you got standing there and how good that looks like you got a big army and everything. The bottom line is you got to make plays when you're between the white lines.
So give us a technical thumbnail on Warsaw. What kind of football do they play? What should we expect to see when we go down there?
Well, they're going to play hard. You know that for a fact.
Right.
Bart Curtis has won everywhere he's gone, and he has instituted the flexbone offense, and they run that and run that and run that and run that. And as they go along in the season, they get better at it. And so we got quite a challenge on defense.
And that's typical of all flexbone teams because it is a highly choreographed option-style offense.
Absolutely. And it's very simple as far as what you work on, but there's a lot of little idiosyncrasies to it. Just a hole over, and this handoff's got to be made here, and this block has got to be made there, and there's a whole lot more to it. But it is very simplified for the kids, and it's just get after you football. And so Bart's been the architect of that, and it's made its impact in the conference. Mishawaka runs the flexbone. Plymouth runs a form of flexbone now.
We have in the past run the flexbone.
We have, and that was Josh Ekovich when he was head coach, and he played for Bart Curtis at New Prairie. So he has his influence all over the place, and he knows what he's doing when it comes to that offense, and he can make adjustments. So we are going to have to try to keep them guessing and not give them the same look. And we're going to have to play well. We're going to have to play very well to try to keep them in check, because what they want to do is wear you down. They want to possess football so you can't score and wear you down, and then open the floodgates, and get a couple scores on you. And the biggest problem this year is their defense. Their defense is playing lights out. I mean, they're getting after it. And that was kind of a weakness for them last year, and their defense has been a strength for them this year. And so we're going to have to continue to be able to run the football and possess the football so their offense can't do that. And, we got a tall order. But I think the kids are up for the challenge.
Coach, one of the things I don't think you're going to have trouble with is getting the kids fired up. I can remember when I came here, I was coaching middle school. This is middle school. And I had an away game at Warsaw. And the kids, on the bus, they were like crazy. And getting off the bus and the game. I don't know what. Is it part of the DNA of what was said?
We were taught from the time I can remember Charlie Hafner at Syracuse Junior High School bringing us into the old gym at Syracuse Junior High, the one that was there from 1927.
Right.
All right. And he would put us in those seats, and there was a 45-minute diatribe about how everyone in the Wawasee schools, first of all, Syracuse was better than Milford or Webster. We don't talk about that anymore, but that's what they used to preach in each of the middle schools. And you are certainly better than anything that ever happened at Warsaw. and don't ever forget it.
Yeah, this is middle school.
Everyone around you is better, and that's how it is. And then when you got to the high school, just take that times 10 with Henry Smith and his trash can at the pep rallies, banging on the trash can and hanging a tiger from the rafters. I mean, it was absolute insane bedlam. And Henry would tell you flat out, there are 3 ways to keep your job as a coach at Wawasee: win the sectional, win the season, or beat Warsaw. And that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not quite like that anymore, and I think that's a good thing. But for those of us who came up under Charles Hafner and Henry Smith, there's still a black kernel in the center of our heart. All right? that is reserved for our feelings toward Warsaw. It's still there.
Oh, yeah. And I learned that when I first arrived 29 years ago.
But it's not quite like it used to be.
No, not quite as bad.
And I think that's probably a good thing.
But it is a big deal. It still is a big deal. And so many people know each other.
Yes.
The communities are close and rally in times of need. And we want to beat them, too. And they are the bigger school. They have had success. And it's a big feather in our cap whenever we can beat Warsaw. And we've had some of those great moments over the years, and people want to mimic that. When I was in high school at Winnemac, North Judson was our big rival, and everybody got up for that. So every high school has that team that's their rival. And for us, it's Warsaw. It's the W game. Both teams started with W, and it used to be at one point in time, both teams had the W decal. And we loved it when, I think it was Coach Jensen, that they would not put a W, or they'd have a W on their helmet, and if they lost the W game, they took the W's off.
Oh wow!
And so that was the chant, all week. Make them take the W's off, and so that was an incentive. Anything that gets you motivated, but you really don't usually have to say too much Warsaw week. The kids know what's on the line. They know the kids on the other side, and they get excited, and the community's passionate, the coaches are passionate, the kids are passionate. So we look forward to this next Friday night.
At Warsaw, going over there. Looks like your team's pretty healthy, but you never know with the COVID thing.
That is a huge thing, and that's part of why we were successful last night. Is we were only missing 3 guys. Now, granted, 2 of them were linemen, and one of them was our kicker. And I'd be neglectful if I didn't point out Lucas Linder. Lucas Linder found out yesterday morning, noon, that he was going to be our kicker last night.
Oh, my.
And as a sophomore, he was thrust into that position in a game that scored 21-19, and he hit every one of those extra points. And then defensively, we stopped a 2-point conversion and blocked one of their extra points. That's the difference in the ball game.
Yep,
that's right.
So here's a kid that also executed the kickoffs right where we wanted him. And, huge. One of those kickoffs we got a turnover on, and they didn't get much of a return off of any of them because of the positioning of the ball and our coverage unit getting right there in their face. And so huge step up, another sophomore stepping up. And so we're getting to the point of the season, Game 7, that they're no longer sophomores. They've had some experience. They've been through some wars and things like that, and it's great to see for a program young kids step up. Hunter Tinkey's been playing varsity all year.
Yes.
Big kickoff return last night. Brandon Kelly's coming on as a running back.
The Alexander boy, he's doing a tremendous job.
He's a junior, but juniors too. Juniors,
they're now seniors.
Yeah, and he wasn't even part of our program last year. He was in Florida, and so. Getting these guys that had not seen varsity experience, Friday Night Lights, and now they're starting to feel it and starting to find their niche and starting to get confident. We talk about defense, playing fast. That's just trusting what you see and going and make a play.
Yep.
And so, blocking, knowing what you need to do and train with the right technique and just getting after it. You just go out there and play. And so we're starting to see kids do that. The influx of kids coming out of, we had so much sickness and COVID since the West Noble game. It's been ridiculous. We were missing 10 or more Northridge game kids every week we go out. And last night we were only missing 3. And it made a huge difference. And we're hoping for the Warsaw game, we got everybody back. We got everybody on board.
Fantastic.
And that allows us to do a lot of things offensively and defensively that we are not able to do when we're short people. And it helps guys that go both ways and play special teams because they get worn down. That's a lot of stuff to do. And having more people there and that depth allows kids to, get the breaks when they need it and a fresh body out there when we need a fresh body, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Coach, thanks for having us here for your Coach's Corner show. The Coach's Corner show with Coach Jon Reutebuch, heard weekly here on 93.7 FM The Mix and 937themix.com. This is WRWTLP Syracuse. We will see you Friday night at Warsaw.